Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Gel, S. Viernes. Once again, Gel, happy Friday to
What is that?
you.
Is that 3 of the last 4 weeks?
I think so. So this
Feels
is
like
a
it, at
first
least.
time we have live streamed twice in 1 week. We're coming at you on Thursday due to our scheduling this week, but nonetheless, get you 2 pods out. Have a fun episode for you today.
Thursday.
Yes, Thursday indeed. Got my nice drink right here.
Sour?
So. Yes, this is a smoothie sour. So this is the one I was talking about last week. It's out of Portland, Oregon. One of the ones that the gentleman at the place my wife went to out in Lake Tahoe had recommended. A solid 4-pack, so 6%er of so the smoothies are like a puree of like fruits and stuff that are mixed into it, and it's a tart apple or tart ale with strawberry, blueberry, lemon, marshmallow. So it's
that
really
sounds
solid,
orgasmic. Honestly, that sounds very delightful.
Yes. Gonna have just a little bit of NFL news in regards to playoff matchup and a streaming service that's going to be having that game. And then it's an MLB episode for the most part. Going to give you a little weekly recap, our big takeaways from the past week or storylines, and then way too early trades. We're about 2.5 months out from the trade deadline right now. So Jill and I are going to tell you which guys could be on the move and maybe to what destination. But
there are, there's the teams that are sellers, the teams that are probably going to be buyers already. I mean, yes, we're only a month and a half into the season, but we know that the Rays are going to be there at the end. I mean, we know that. So we know that, as mentioned in last week's episode, the White Sox, like, they're not going anywhere anytime fast. I believe they've got half the wins that they do losses. So generally, generally not great,
not
Bob.
Ideal. Not at all. Gonna kick it off with the question of the day today.
Before you get going on this new question of the day, our last question of the day was a barbecue topic. Yes. And that got me going. I went out last night, I went to the grocery store, got myself a rack of ribs, got myself some steakhouse potato salad, got myself some grilling beans, some baked beans. The Bush's steakhouse recipe grilling beans, best baked beans out there, in my opinion. Hashtag not a sponsor, but my go-to baked bean. So that's going to be that'll be on the menu for the weekend for me. I'm that conversation got me going.
That sounds amazing.
I can't wait.
Yeah, this time I actually do have time to maybe catch a flight down there as opposed to last
rather
time.
Than same day, same night.
Yes. Question of the day today. This is a topic that is near and dear to our heart, Jill, that we haven't talked about in quite some time. And I want to talk a little college football. There's been a lot of rumors this last week about, conference realignment again. There's been rumors of Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, possibly wanting to jump ship over to the Big 12. And then Clemson, Florida State, Miami wanting out of the ACC deal so that they can presumably jump over to the SEC. That ACC media rights deal, I know they've got lawyers looking through it right now to see if there's any possible outs, and it's pretty hard, I guess, to get out of. At least that's what we're hearing.
Isn't that deal through 2036? Okay, I knew it was mid-30s, which is insane.
There's been other rumors of the Big Ten vetting Washington and Oregon in case those other 4 Pac-12 teams jump to the Big 12. It's been rumored that the Big Ten doesn't want to, I guess, which is funny because they're one of the ones that stole 2 teams already, but they don't want to be the, nail in the coffin to the Pac-12 and are waiting for some other teams to jump out before they go in and swoop up those 2 teams. But I guess 2 questions here. One, what are your initial thoughts, I guess, with all of these rumors going down? And 2, once the dust settles on this, what do you eventually see with this? Is there still going to be a Pac-12 and ACC? What teams might we see move into different conferences?
Well, I mean, once the realignment started, I kind of felt like, look, this isn't going to be the end of it. I mean, we had seen some realignment in the past with kind of, West Virginia moving from the Big East to the Big 12, which that still feels weird to me, given that
Right.
they're not in the South. Like that kind of feels weird to me, but it's like when those types of moves start happening and Nebraska jumping into the Big 10 for presumably money, I still don't get why the Big 10 went after Rutgers. Like they went after Rutgers, who has never been relevant whatsoever. I guess they wanted that New York, New Jersey market, but nobody freaking cares about Rutgers. And they've like all those Jersey, New York fans, they've got Syracuse, they've got St. John's, they've like pretty much any team other than Rutgers is relevant. Like they're the least relevant team out in that North New York area. So I never really understood that. I still don't. I mean, Syracuse is the basketball. Syracuse and St. John's are the basketball schools that own that state. And Rutgers has never been relevant outside of maybe that one season that in football when they had Ray Rice. Like that's it. I don't know of any other relevant Rutgers football teams. So, and they've never been relevant in basketball. So I never really understood taking them on. And then the Big Ten also grabbing Nebraska, who is 45 years or so out of their prime. Like
It feels like it at least.
Like,
jeez.
Oh my God. I don't know, whatever. That's what's crazy is that's a long time ago. But now with the alignment of, Texas, Oklahoma moving to the SEC, it's like, okay, that's feels like kind of, the additional stab in the wound for the Big 12. Now, if they are able to get some schools like in Arizona State over there, at least that's something, but for numbers, I guess, but obviously those schools don't have the relevancy that a Texas and Oklahoma do have. As far as the Big Ten goes, I kind of, once they stole that LA market, grabbing USC, UCLA, what's left of the Pac-12? I mean, at this point, I kind of felt like eventually it's eventually going to happen where Washington and Oregon, I think they do end up in the Big Ten. How quickly? I don't know why they're scared about being the nail in the coffin for the Pac-12. Like the SEC is like, fuck it. Let's go get Florida State. Let's go get Miami. Let's corner this Florida market. And what was it? Florida State, Miami, Clemson, you said were the 3 ACC teams. So you'd assume they end up jumping ship, to the SEC, like you said. I don't know why the Big Ten's going to be scared to do it. But that kind of seems like the Midwest way, bunch of nice guys up in the Midwest, and we don't want to, ruffle any feathers. Well, you already kind of did with USC, UCLA. I mean, that's the base of the Pac-12 is that LA market. And so if you take away the home base of the Pac-12, why not just continue and go, and why be scared about breaking up and putting the nail in the coffin in that conference? Because you already kind of did. You built the grave, you placed the coffin there. So,
and you went behind their back too, because they had made that so-called alliance with the Pac-12 and the ACC.
That's Texas right. I forgot about that.
And then a couple months later, they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're taking USC." Have fun.
It's going to be interesting with the former Big Ten commissioner who did he get a job with some professional league? Was it the MLB?
No, he's not the CEO, but he's way, way up the ladder for the Bears. He's going to be in charge of their new project to potentially move the team out to that Arlington Park area and away from Soldier Field.
So you wonder, I guess, how this next commissioner is going to handle this transition for the Big Ten. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this is already kind of worked out. It's obviously is already worked out with UCLA, USC. And is this new commissioner brand new to the conference? Does he maybe he wants to build up his reputation, and that's why he's like, hey, I don't want to put the dirt on this grave that has already been built. So maybe that's the reason why. But at the same time, if you're a new commissioner, you can be like, don't fuck with me. I'm stealing more of your teams from the Pac-12.
Right.
Don't try to screw me over. You saw what I did by putting the nail in the coffin. So maybe he's not going for the power play, or he's clearly not going for the power play here, which I guess is kind of refreshing. I always liked having the conferences that were aligned by region. I just kind of, it made college sports different than professional sports, but now that with how much money is in college sports, it doesn't surprise me that each, the two power conferences, being the SEC and the Big Ten, are going gold mining here and trying to get as much cash as they can. But am I in favor of it? Not really. I'm excited for some of the matchups. I will say that, but Pac-12 at night. That's one of the cool, I love Pac-12 at night when I'm just, I get back, back from a buddy's place or back from a bar, and I get back at 11:30 or something. And hey, Pac-12 football is still on for another hour and a half. That's
or
awesome.
Just kicking off sometimes.
Or just kicking off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I guess I'm going to miss. And usually they're shitty teams. Usually it's like an Arizona State, Washington State kind of a game or something. But then you got to wonder, is Fresno State, do they jump into the Pac-12 if the Pac-12 is going to even remain a conference? I mean, you kind of think they're going to do whatever they can to stay afloat. But a lot of moving parts, obviously, that I think started really, there was some small realignment going on. And then once Texas and Oklahoma jump ship to the SEC, it's like, okay, now it's on, like party time.
Yeah. No, I agree completely with you on that. I think eventually you are going to see Washington and Oregon jumping into the Big Ten conference. It just kind of seems inevitable at this point. And I'm curious if that does happen, what happens with some of those other big programs that are in that Pac-12 and what they end up doing. What happens to a Washington State and Oregon State, a Stanford, which not super relevant in the sports world. I mean, they have been at times, but not perennial powerhouses, at least for the major sports of football, basketball. But we'll see what ends up happening with them. That Pac-12, I mean, San Diego State's coming in once UCLA, USC move out. But I mean, does Boise State jump into that conference? I mean, who else do they try and add? There really isn't anyone else to add that's going to take or bring anything more
Colorado
to the table.
State Rams.
The Rams, yeah.
They're garbage.
Gonzaga basketball and just not have a football team. But
that's actually probably a good play for at least for the basketball
side. Yeah. But as far as the SEC too, I think it's a matter of time with that. And I think those schools are going to do everything that they possibly can to try and get them out. I don't know what happens too. I mean, it almost feels like you need a fourth school out of that grouping to maybe jump to the SEC.
Why?
Just for the numbers wise, because when Texas and Oklahoma come in, they have an even number. And if three teams go in, you're going to have an odd number. And then once it gets into conference play, I guess just rotate a bye or something. But
I don't know. I wouldn't be too worried about that. About the even odd number thing. I mean,
yeah, maybe they steal
the Big Ten had 11 teams for a long time.
Yeah.
Before Rutgers and Nebraska were added on. And then it was 13. So what's the Big Ten at right now? Isn't it 13 teams right now?
14. I think there's 7 in each.
Who am I missing here?
Because on our side, it's Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern, Purdue, Nebraska. And then on the other side, both Michigan teams. Ohio
I'm thinking of Maryland.
State,
Maryland is the one
Rutgers,
that I'm missing. So that's Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska made it 14, but they rocked 11 teams for the longest time. And I don't think it was a big deal. So I'm not worried about the even odd number. Maybe you have one extra team in the East to try to make the East a little bit more competitive, because it's been the West for the most part that has dominated that conference between, I guess mostly Alabama, LSU, but and Florida's obviously had their down years. Georgia has been obviously amazing the last couple, but it was a long stretch where the West was, including Auburn too, The West dominated the East. So maybe when you bring in a Clemson, Miami, Florida State, that may balance things out a little bit and keep those guys in the East. You send over Vanderbilt, Tennessee to the West and, kind of may balance things out a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. We saw the super conference thing coming. Once Texas and OU moved over, it's like, okay, It's coming. And then it wasn't long after that USC, UCLA were announced coming to the Big Ten. So,
yeah. Well, the Big Ten had to make a move because otherwise, if you waited for another conference to do it, then we're talking totally different about what's the future of the Big Ten right now. And they might be on the chopping block.
Yeah.
So they made their move. And I like too that you had said it's always fun to turn on that Pac-12 after dark, but it'll just now essentially be the Big Ten after dark. So, and we'll actually have some relevant matchups that are meaningful with us both being Badger fans. You can tune into a game that starts at 9:00, 9:30 our time that has implications on where we're going to end up in the standings. So makes it a little bit more meaningful, but at the same time too, though, it is nice just to kind of shut your brain off and watch some football and just enjoy it too, and not have to worry about, I need this team to lose so the Badgers move up the standings. And
it'll be interesting to see how Fox handles this. If they're going to do the big noon kickoff, which is a noon Eastern time kickoff, 11 Central, that means a 9 a.m. kickoff for USC, UCLA. If they're in the big noon kickoff, like they're going to have to figure out a way to navigate that.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work for anybody's body clock, including fans.
No, not at all. Although solid time to have bloody and watch the game. That's for sure.
That's right.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, Dead Arm Sports, into that search bar. Subscribe there. Click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. If you were subscribed, you know that we had a bonus live episode this week. So make sure you go and subscribe there. We can be found on our socials at Dead Arm Sports. If you want to follow Gel, he can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Give all three of those a follow. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, and we will swag you up with some Dead Arm Sports goodies. Just a quick NFL tidbit